Alright, folks, welcome back to the Boys in Green YouTube channel. And today we've got a special guest on the channel. I'm delighted to have author and top journalist and Celtic Way contributor Tony Haggerty. How you doing?
I'm very well, Josh. How you doing? You all right?
I'm alright. Um, Obviously you're a big figure in the Celtic podcast and journalism world, really. Very
Am
well
I?
known.
Am I?
I'd say you are. um,
I'll take that as a compliment. That's very kind, so thank you.
but you're normally the voice of reason, it seems, when everybody else is going after absolute heads with Celtic. But just going to obviously kind of discuss how you kind of get into sports journalism and as a want to be a sports journalism journalist myself. Sorry, just how you got there, really. So how did you obviously get into it? How did you want to start in the world of sports journalism?
Well, I came to your college and I spoke to you and your
Aye,
cohort, didn't I? And the reason I get into sports journalism is through a personal heartache, isn't it really? And I told you about the trials for Celtic Boys Club. I signed the form and I was 3 weeks too old, and I retreated to a room like this and just wept buckets of tears. Don't mind admitting that. I was 13, and on the TV screen in my bedroom was Scott Sport, and Arthur Montford was a famous Scottish football broadcaster, a journalist, and author. That was on a Sunday, and on the BBC, that was on STV, and on the BBC on a Saturday, it was Archie Macpherson who presented Sportscene. And so I just looked at the screen and I thought, if I can't be a footballer, I want to be him. And I said to my dad, he came into the room and he said, you can't cry all your life. And I said, watch me. And I said, okay. I said, I'm going to be him. And so from then on in, my dad said, well, he's what's known as a sports broadcaster, a sports journalist, football writer. Call them what you will. And I said, well, I'm going to do his job. That's what I want to do. And from then on in, I just told anybody that would listen that I would write for the Daily Record newspaper, because the Daily Record was the paper that get delivered to the house. If it had been any other newspaper, I would have wanted to write for them. And so from the age of 13, I was tunnel visioned. Anyone that said to me, what are you going to do when you leave school? I'm going to be a writer for the Daily Record. I'm going to be a football journalist. And that was plan A. I didn't have a plan B, still don't have a plan B in life. I tried a plan B when I went back to university to hopefully get a qualification to teach English to students, and I left about 3 months away from graduating because, one, I didn't enjoy it, and two, I get a chance to get back into my first love, which was football journalism. So I jumped at that opportunity. But yeah, that's the motivation behind that. From very early on, I'm now 51. So 38 years ago, I kind of knew where I wanted to go and where I wanted to head. And I just loved football. We all love football. I love playing it. I love watching it. I love talking about, I laugh, talking about headers and volleys and stuff like that, and great players and great moments. And I couldn't get enough of it. So yeah, as I say, I was very tunnel vision. I would be first year at school, first year at secondary school, and anybody who cared to listen to me warbling was told that I was going to be a journalist, a sports journalist, football writer, call it what you like, for the Daily Record, and it came to pass many years later. But yeah, so that was my early. I wanted to emulate Arthur Montford and Archie Macpherson, who, in the course of my journalistic travails, became friends. Arthur sadly passed away. Still very friendly with Archie Macpherson, and it's something that I hold dearly to me.
It's obviously it's quite similar in many ways to me. We all kind of when we grow up, we all kind of
Mm.
80% want to be a football player, want to play for Celtic, whatever. But some obviously that doesn't really become the case. So I think when I kind of got to like first year in school, it was kind of like right, I need to find something. I enjoy writing, enjoy talking, enjoy just overall anything to do with football really, and just sport in general. To be honest, and enjoying like my tennis and things like that as well. So I just thought I want to get into something that I can. really enjoy
Yeah,
in sports journalism. And people always says to me, like, as well, "What's your plan B?" I says, "I've not got a plan B," and they're like, "That's reckless." And I'm like, "No, I know I'm gonna become a sport."
yeah,
I had that drive in me that I
yeah.
knew I was gonna become one, and I know still to this day that I really that's what I want to do, and that's what I'll continue to try and hit away at trying to do. You know what I mean? So
Of course,
I
and it
I
can take
think
you a long way. That can take
it
a
can.
long way, ambition and drive, and it's taken me a long way, as you heard when I came to speak to you guys, and we'll speak in the course of this. So it's never ever lose that, because
Um, I I think it's
if you lose that, then it's not worth
I I think that's the
considering.
same in kind of any like, job. If you use
Yeah,
the
of course.
enjoyment, then
You,
you know
you work for
use the
many years of your life. You need to enjoy what you do, but if
I
there's a passion behind what you do as well, and a love, then it certainly it motivates you. And there's certainly
I.
more good days than bad days.
So did you have you've wrote for the Daily Record? I'm pretty right
I
in
was
saying it.
21 years at the Daily Record.
Oh,
I did I did an English and politics degree at Strathclyde University between 1991 and 1995, and I went back 96, 97. Is that right? 96, 97. Yeah, to do the postgraduate diploma in journalism at Strathclyde University in Glasgow Caledonian University, and I came, and so I duly obtained both of those qualifications, and I came out, and within 6 months I was working for the local paper in Paisley, the Paisley Gazette series, or the Paisley Gazzetta della Sport, as I called it at the time, covering St Mirren matches and covering Atherley, Neilston, Johnston Borough, and Renfrew Junior matches. And I was there for about a year, and it was a brilliant year. Atherley won the Scottish Cup when I was there, Scottish Junior Cup. St Mirren almost got relegated to like what would be League One, the second, the old second division it was called, but they nearly get relegated to which was now League One, but they didn't. They stayed up. Shuggy Murray scored a wonderful goal at Fourth Bank for St Mirren, and it was tears and snotters that day, and it was a wonderful grounding for me, because I got a lot of mistakes, and the rookie journalistic mistakes that you would make, and also I learned how to deal with people, how to hone up my interview skills, how to get stories out of nothing. It was tremendous, and I still talk to some of the people who were around back then. So that would be what 1998, and I've got a real fondness for those days. Even though every Thursday today would be District Court Day, and you go to District Court and cover that, and that's a skill all in itself. So yeah, it was a wonderful time, and I say I've got a lot of fondness for it, and but it helped in a long way shape the journalist that I became, and I've become. I When I was there, I got the chance to cover football matches for the Daily Record. I was a kind of St Mirren correspondent on a Saturday for them, and they would send me to the St Mirren games, knowing I would be there. So it was so when I got to know important people at the Daily Record. So when I was leaving the Paisley Gazette, I got a job with an agency called Scottish News and Sport, which is now called SNS Group. Back then they dealt with words and pictures. Now they're just a pictures agency. And I had the fortune of meeting a wonderful man called Jim McCann, who sadly passed away. But Jim was just a wonderful, wonderful person. He was a former journalist and an author himself, and he taught me a lot of tricks of the trade, and I'm ever so grateful to him for that. I've written 2 books, as you know, and I I made a glowing tribute to him in the second book by saying I could only ever think of him as a second father, because he was just that influential to me, and he picked me up many times even when I was at the record, and I hit a low, a trough, and I was at low ebb, I would always phone Jim, and he would always keep my head up and spirits up. And I lament the passing of him sadly, and I miss him every day. And but he was good for me. He was good for my career, and he guided me along the path. And I'm ever so grateful that I had somebody like that in my life doing that. And so I think you're destined to meet certain people in life, and Jim was one of them. So a lot of things that he taught me, I still take on board to this day, or have taken on board. And he was great, and I was there, and I was only there for 6 months. Became a lifelong friend, and he was largely instrumental in getting me into the Daily Record. I used to do a lot of stuff for SNS, and everything that I did, I more or less offer it to the Daily Record. So Jim pitched an idea to the Daily Record that they should possibly give me a job, and within what was that, 97, 98, within a year and a half of leaving university for the second time, I was 27, or coming up for. I was 26, and I would have been 27 on my next birthday. I was in the sports desk of the Daily Record, and just an incredible journey, and kind of quantum leap from university into this wonderful environment, which half my lifetime I'd spent telling everybody that I was going to be. In fact, all my lifetime, from I was 13 till I was 26. So half that lifetime I'd spent telling everybody I was going to work for the Daily Record. I finally found myself on the sports desk at the Daily Record, and it was something that I was immensely proud of, something that my family were proud of, and I was there for my sins for the next 21 years, or 20 and a half, 20 years, 6 months. So people can read what they want into that, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
I think you talk a lot there about obviously you had people that picked you up and stuff like that. Obviously that must be really important because there is going to be times where you think, am I doing a good job here? Or if you make a mistake, you need somebody to
You,
kind of,
your life's riddled with insecurities
right,
and imposter syndrome, Joshua, and very early on in your career, especially when you're at a national newspaper, you do wonder if you're cut out for it or you're good enough for it. But you got to have the courage of your convictions, and got to be assured in what you're doing and that you are. And I'd felt that this is something I'd always wanted to do. So I felt as if this is where I belonged. But you're only as good as your writing and the way you go about your business. And as I also said to a lot of the guys when I spoke to them that day at the college, I still retain. I've got a lot of friendships and a lot of contacts from those days. I mean, I started the Daily Record April the 1st, 1999, the original April Fool, as they say, Joshua, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And and as I say, there's a lot of guys that I still speak to who were involved in football then, who are still involved in football, or they're out of football, but I still want their opinion, whether it be of a Celtic nature or a football nature in general. So, I like to think that over those years, I leave it to others to judge, but I did
right.
an okay job. I think I did okay, and the experiences I had they were incredible, and you wouldn't swap them for anything. And it's as a budding football sports journalist yourself, it's a wonderful life. It's a cracking life, and I've enjoyed it. But it wasn't handed to me. You know yourself.
You need to work for it.
You work hard, yeah.
Mm,
So it's a true saying. You get out what you put in. I've
right.
worked damned hard. As I say, I always say to people, I'm 27 years to be an overnight sensation. That people see yourself on the Celtic Way podcast, and they'll see it on whatever way they consume social media. And I get a lot of, I saw you on my telly, I saw you on my screen, I saw you on this, that, and that's the most humbling thing in the world, right?
You must think, well, I've made it now.
Well, not so much
Yeah.
that. You never
Yeah.
think that because I'll never.
Aye.
I'm not built like that.
Aye.
I often say I'm like. Remember, Jose Mourinho said he was a special one, and then Jurgen Klopp said he was a normal one.
Aye.
I'm a Jurgen Klopp, I'm a
Yep,
normal
and
one. So,
Klopp.
so whenever somebody says that to him, they usually say it when you're standing in the queue at the baker's for, like Greg's for a pasty or something, and you see other people looking as if, you know, who's this?
You can
The-
you can tell that
and,
people are
you know,
interested in
and
sport, and the other people are just
yeah, and then others, they've got that, and people say, and I guess if you're a sports fan, football fan, quite a Celtic fan, or even Rangers fan or any other club, because a lot of guys tune in. I think in their minds, there's possibly an element of fame attached to it. It's what
aye,
I do for a living, and I've learned to live with it. But I can understand why other people would see it that way. But I'm always courteous, and anyone that comes up to speak to me, I don't ignore them. I'll speak to them about football. I'll give them a time because it's just the way I was brought up.
aye.
I can't allow myself to think, you know,
I think you're above
you've
everybody
ever
else.
made it, or you're more important than anybody else, or you're better than anybody else. It's just, I think I'm in a fortunate and privileged position that every day I get the chance to do something that I love, and not everybody has that. And
Mhm.
so, if they want to speak to you, then I, again, I think it was Jim that said to me, civility costs nothing. It's another one of
Aye.
those life lessons that you learn, as you get older and wiser. And I don't know if I'm older and wiser, but I'd like to think so.
I know that's the well, from personal obviously experience. What I found with you, you're very open. You will try and like make.
Yeah,
You will try and help. Like obviously, hopefully future journalists like myself. If we need help or we need tips or whatever, and you've obviously done this interview for me as well. So
because
it's
I was once the guy sitting on the other side of the screen asking the
aye,
questions of
aye,
somebody who I thought was famous, and so I said to you before, this is the most relatable thing in my life. I was
aye,
a university student. I was a budding journalistic hopeful. I was telling everybody I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, or I want to do this, I want to do that, and I was driven. So I I think it's and it sounds like kind of lip service, but if you can help somebody, then help.
mm,
Put something back in. Football, journalism, sports, writing. It's been good to me. So, and I think it's the most flattering thing in the world that somebody like yourself would come and ask me for any font of wisdom at all.
aye,
So, and that's why I'm open. I don't hold the secret to Pandora's box or the keeping the Dead Sea Scrolls from people. I'll tell you what you want to know, and if I can help, excuse me, and it's beneficial at all, then it's you get that element of satisfaction from that you're helping to shape a young mind the way Jim did with me, the way many people did with me in my career, and people are ever so grateful for that, and I know I was, you know, it's and on this interview, I will speak a lot, you will listen a lot, you will ask questions, but I'm like you. When I was younger, I knew when to shut that and open them. And
mm,
I listened to a lot of people who were older, wiser, and who had years of experience in the profession. So I like to think that I took a lot of things on board and it's rubbed off on me a bit.
aye. I think it's obviously important because a lot of people, they'll like for instance, like you kind of inspired me to try and make this channel really, to be honest, because this is only a new channel really. So kind of me personally inspired me to kind of go and just try things and so what people kind of said, and that's a big thing. It's a thick skin. You need to just
Yeah, I've
yeah,
always joked, Joshua, that I've got thick skin because it goes with a thick head, So it's and I've often found that humour's a brilliant weapon that can disarm people, especially if you're self-deprecatory as well. Am I the best writer that ever crawled Planet Football? No. Do I want to be the best writer that ever crawled Planet Football? I'm trying. I'll never reach it, but hey, as long as I keep reaching, then, and I told you guys every day you wake up, aspire to be the best journalist you can be. Take risks. Do your thing. Don't let anybody tell you you can't do this, because you can. And the thing I would say to you guys, I told you all, there's a wonderful technological revolution, digital age of journalism. Be at the forefront of it.
Mm.
Make yourself indispensable. Sharpen up all these tools that you've got at your disposal, doing podcasts, editing videos. Be funky with the pictures and all that kind of stuff. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. This is your world. It's also my world, and but I'm an older guy. I mean, I say to you, a 51-year-old man shouldn't be a TikTok star, should he? Really?
TikTok, Tony, man.
TikTok's only exactly right. But again, have a bit of fun with it, right? It's not to be taken seriously. And for those of you who are wondering that private joke between me and Josh, I'm on TikTok for the Celtic Way. I do a thought of the day. It's Celtic related, and I call it Triple T time. TikTok Tony, and it's less than a minute, because a minute you can chunk it up and put it on YouTube, and people can see it. And some of the numbers on them are ridiculous. For someone like myself, I would associate that with somebody like yourself. See, and but yeah, some of those like minute uh, video segments, can get like over
You've got
10,000.
famous for that anyway, 'cause
Yeah,
my mate, my
and I just, and that astounds me.
my
And it's not false modesty. I just look at that and think, wow. And 4 years ago, I left the Daily Record. It'll be coming up 5 in October, and I'm a totally different journalist now than I was then. And if you'd have said to me back then, you'll be doing all of this, I would have laughed at you and said,
uh,
very good, you know. But
no, 'cause me and my mate were talking about Celtic last night. And he's like, "Oh, I was listening to Triple T," and I was like, "Who's Triple T?" And he was like, "Oh, it's Tony Haggerty." I was like, "Alright, well."
yeah, and you know what? See things like that. I mean, how complimentary is that? How can you not laugh at that and enjoy that? And even if people are taking the mickey, or which in Glasgow, if you support one of the big two's, a high probability. But you got to enjoy it.
I
If
enjoy it,
people
man.
are coming on and slagging you, so be it. It's
Aye.
the world now. It's the journalistic world that you live in.
That's what I was gonna kinda ask. Obviously, you've got a lot of, like, negativity out there, being people are entitled to their opinions, some people take it too far, right? But, I don't, like, obviously, Celtic supporters, so rivals Rangers, I've got family and that who support
Mhm.
Rangers and stuff like that. We have banter all the time and stuff, obviously, you get the people that take it a wee bit too far, but how do you kinda just not shut them out as such, but kinda know let them affect you? Because you probably will get messages or whatever, calling you
You
and
learn
stuff.
the hard way, because it is hard, and sometimes again you seek advice of others in these kind of things, but mute and block are your friends. I don't invite it into my home. What I
Aye,
usually do on Twitter or X and Facebook is I direct them to something that I have written. I direct people to
aye,
something that I've maybe written, and I put the links in. And if you want to read it, fine. And see if you come back to me and you say, I really like that, I'll say thank you. See if you come back and you're negative and you're abusive, I don't respond. I only respond to people that are kind, right?
aye,
And then when people aren't kind, again, they're entitled to their opinion. But why would you want to engage with somebody like that who, and I also, it's fine, as I say, that they're entitled to their opinion, but I really only engage with someone who maybe says they liked, and that's all I do. I say thanks for your comments, really appreciate it. I usually just put something up, and then I let people decide. And I think you have to develop that very early, that you are not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
mhm,
And once you get that into your head, then fine. You will please some people. You won't please others. It's that old saying, isn't it? You can fool all the people all the time, or some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time, So I used to always say, I'm fooling everybody all the time. Look, I'm still doing it. That kind of stuff. Again, that self-deprecatory thing, it makes you real. You don't get carried away with your own self-importance and anything that you write. If people, first and foremost, I take it as a compliment. People will actually read what you write for a start and get to the end of it. And if they've got that much of opinion that they want to abuse you, then it's like everything else. If it happened in real life, you would walk away from them, wouldn't you?
Aye,
If they were standing next to you and being negative and abusive, you would just say, "That's fine, no problem.
aye,
Uh, I'll walk away." So I don't invite that into my world. As I say, I'm kind to people who are kind to me, and I think
mhm,
that's the way again going back to it's the way I've been brought up. But you do deal with a lot of negativity, and it is hard to find the mechanism to shove it to the one side. But I unless it's your bosses giving you negativity, Joshua, you don't bother what anyone else says. You have the courage of your own convictions, and you know what you're
aye,
doing in terms of your writing, and you find your voice. You find the kind of journalist that you want to be. And as I say, unless it's gaffers giving you grief, then they're the only people. It's like footballers, isn't it? You're the only people you need to impress are your gaffers.
aye,
And if you're doing something right, then you stay in your mode of employment for as many years as I have. Then I like to think that I've got a handle on it now. You know, I can write a
aye,
wee bit. I think as I say, you leave all that up to others. But I've been a journalist for 27 years of my life. That's more than half my life. So I like to think that I know a thing or six about football. People might
aye.
dispute that. That's fair enough. That's their prerogative, isn't it?
I was just gonna ask as well, seeing you like growing up and things like that, did you have somebody like a football player or a media personality, anybody you kind of looked up to as he's a person who inspires me today, what I want to do really? If you
In
speak about
chronological order, in terms of football heroes, King Kenny was my first football icon and idol. King Kenny Dalglish, I mean, just arguably the greatest player to ever play for Celtic. Those
aye,
who watch Jimmy Johnson will dispute that, and Jimmy Johnson was voted the greatest ever Celtic footballer. I'm I'm not going to question the Celtic supporters' judgment on that, but I watched something that was close to perfection in King Kenny, and I only saw him for a few months because I was just getting into football. My father took me to see the Celtic team of 76, 77, and Kenny Dalglish left in the summer, and he broke my heart. And I thought I'd never ever love football again. And but so he left, and then all of a sudden Maradona came along, and the world just spun on its axis football wise, and I loved Maradona, and 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 as I say, I was an avid sports scene watcher, Scott sport watcher. So likes of Archie McPherson and Arthur Montford did the best job in the world, and I just I consumed everything about football back then as a kid growing up, and these were inspirational figures. And then Celtic wise, early Charlie Nicholas, the first time around, he's just wonderful, just a
aye,
great player. But you know, I had these kind of it wasn't so much hero worship, but there were people I really really liked, and they made you fall in love with football. And I loved that Nottingham Forest team that won the European Cup back to back, 79 and 1980. Brian Clough, loved all that kind of stuff. English teams dominated Europe when I was growing up for 6 years. So I kind of grew up in a really good era, let's put it that way. And I think, an era, whatever you want to go and say it. And, my it kind of shaped the way I looked at football and how the person I was going to be. And you talk about I've interviewed Ken Dalglish many times as a footballing personality, and it never ever loses its. You just sit there and you think, I'm sitting across from King Kenny. I'm sitting across from greatness, and he can be awkward at times, but I just he was an ambassador for McDonald's, right? And years ago, McDonald's invited the Daily Record for some hospitality, so they sent myself, one of the journalists, and we were sitting at a table, made a meal and all that. And then we went out into the stands, into the cushion seats. Scotland were playing Germany, and so as luck would have it, in the padded seats, I'm sitting beside King Kenny. So I'm watching a football match beside, and it's one of the most surreal experiences of your career.
sounds bad, man.
So Freddie Bobic scored for Germany very early, and then Kenny Miller equalised. Scotland drew one each at Hampden, And Ken Douglas is as fervent as they come, right? He's a mad Scotland supporter. So when Kenny Miller scored, you jump up, and I'm jumping around, and you're doing that, you do that with the person next to you, and I'm doing it beside Ken Douglas. And I look upwards, and I'm just like, this is bizarre, and it and it's one of the few times in my life that, and he's been everywhere with me. I wish my father was there. He's still
Aye.
alive, but I just wished he was there in that moment, because it was my father that took me to see Ken Douglas, because that was my hero as a kid.
Mhm.
And I just wished in that moment he'd have been there and he'd been jumping around with us, because it would have been just the best ever. And so I think your love for football, kind of that transcends everything. And when you have these moments, you've got to enjoy them. Yeah, I'm a professional person, but that kind of goes over the whole kind of level of not so much professionalism. It's just something I'll never ever get to do again in my life. And
Aye.
and I'm I'm grateful to the occupation and profession that I'm in that's given me that. And then I showed you the book, the front book cover, right? I mean, right, it's like, and for anybody that's asking, yeah, that's me, a Glacier looking me, alongside the greatest footballer of the 1980s, Diego Armando Maradona, sent out. He's holding a glass trophy with the words, "On behalf of the people of Scotland for the 2 goals against England in Mexico '86," right? And I was told, if you don't get a picture with Diego holding this trophy, don't bother coming back. And I go to Celtic Park. It's his first ever game as Argentina manager, and they are training at Celtic Park. They're playing Scotland later on in the week, and he's taking his training session at Celtic Park, and the Daily Record say, "Get thee to Celtic Park." And I've got a friend, a guy called James Quinn. He's a lifelong friend, known him since school. And the two of us loved Diego Armando. So I phoned him on the way there, and I said, "James, you'll never guess where I'm going." And he's like, "Where?" I said, "Celtic Park." I says, "I've to kind of ambush Maradona and present him with a last trophy." And he said to me, I says, "But you can't get near him. The security's like, it's..." And he said to me, "Find a way, do it." He says, "Even if you have to hit him in the head, the back of the head with a glass trophy, get that trophy to Maradona, because you'll regret it for the rest of your life if you don't." And I just thought, do you know what? He's right. So when we got to Celtic Park, Argentina were on the playing surface training, and Diego was doing his thing. And I just positioned myself at the mouth of the tunnel. And I thought, never, never. So he's going to have to come off the park, isn't he? So he's walking off the park with the team. And, and just as he's getting to the mouth of the tunnel, the security's gathering. And I just started screaming, "Diego, Diego, Diego." But initially kind of walked past. And then I just started spitting out, "Dos golos, and Inglaterra, Mexico, '86." And so he turns, and I'm holding this glass trophy. And I was assured that he never spoke any English. And he just said, "For me," I said, "For you, dos golos, Inglaterra," you know. And he came towards me, and I'm thinking, he's going to take this. He's going to take this trophy. And sure enough, he took the trophy, and I've just went like that, excuse me, as he grabbed it. And from absolutely nowhere, the cameraman, or the photographer from the Daily Record, Dominic Cacosa, great guy, wonderful man, has just bang. And he said, "Tony, I've got something." And he starts legging it, because all hell breaks loose, like security and all that come. And there's a steward in the picture. He gets kicked somewhere, I'd rather not say. And it's bedlam. I mean, it's utter bedlam, because
Aye.
just like,
No, because I've been asked about that photo a few times, and they're like, "Why is he in such an awkward position?" I was like, and I'm trying to explain to him because
yes,
he had like a
I'm yeah, I'm
hit
sliding down the kind of the tunnel goes
aye,
like that. I'm sliding down, and like, that's a freeze frame moment in time, right? And the chapter in the book's called "Perfect 10 and Perfect Picture," and I'm glad it's like that. I'm glad it's not a stunted up picture, because that captures a moment in time, and it also it's just like, I idolised this guy more than anybody, I think, in my whole footballing life. And your lives are intrinsically linked. When he sadly passed away, people were texting me that day and getting in touch on Twitter and saying, "Are you okay? How are you feeling?" It's like it's
Aye.
just crazy, that. And I go. I stay in East Kilbride, and I went to a nightclub in East Kilbride not long after that, and a guy came up to me and said, "It's you, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Sorry," and he went, "You're the guy that was pictured with Maradona?" And I said, "Yes, I was." I said, just amazing." And he went, "Can I shake the hand that shook the hand of God?" It's just like, it's just like, wow, it's just utterly surreal and bizarre. But again, the your love of your profession and your occupation that allowed you this moment, an opportunity in life that no other uh, no other job would present. And I just
Aye.
remembered the words of my friend James in my ears: "If you don't present them with it, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." And that I kind of I know when to listen, and I tuned into that and I thought, you know what, I will. So by hook or by crook, Diego Maradona was going to get that glass trophy. I would have, you know,
You might have ended up in a Polish cell by the end of the night, but if we go to
I could have ended up in the jail, Joshua, for breaching security and all that. But he was going to get presented with it. And as I said, Dominic, who took the picture, and I know it's not the greatest picture of me, and but do you know what? That just adds
Maradona,
to the
man.
mystique of it, and it's just again another one of those surreal moments in your career that you look back at it and you smile, and I was really sad when he passed away because he remains to me the greatest footballer that ever lived. People talk about Lionel Messi, and others talk about Pele. Again, subjective, but for
Aye.
me, he's the greatest footballer that ever lived, and there's a glaikit picture of me with my arm round him
I
at
think,
Celtic Park of all places. It's yeah, for posterity. So yeah, these are things that growing up you just never think will happen to you, but it did, and I'm ever so grateful for it.
it's just mad how like these like, football players can have that sort of effect on you. Like for me, it is Messi because I wasn't around when
Yeah,
Maradona was around, but
sure.
Messi. Every time I watch Messi, it's brilliant, man. But
I can
I
understand that. Yeah, so
um, but I it's just I think it's still mad that you've met probably for me he is one of the greatest. I'd say behind Messi, but they're quite equal to be honest. I'd say, but um. It's crazy because people because when you came to the college and I says this guy's met Maradona. I remember somebody saying to me, he's like, "You sure he wasn't just saying that to you?" And I was like, "No, I showed him the picture." And he's like, "Oh, that's him right enough."
I know, and
I'm like,
it's sometimes you kind of you you refuse, not so much refuse. You find it hard to believe yourself, but I've been asked many times, but it's still not the greatest moment of my journalistic career. And people say to me, "What's your favourite interview?" And I don't have one because I've interviewed so many footballers, and that's not being blasé about it. It's just that I would find it really hard to
mm,
say that this, but I've got a favourite moment, and it's my dad introduced me to Kenny Dalglish, taking me to see Kenny Dalglish back in '76. As a kid, I was 4 years of age, coming up for five, 76, 77 season. And I used to do panel nights, and on the panel would be like Jimmy Johnston, Bobby Murdoch, Bertie Auld, and your old Dahir, right? I'm thinking, well, I used to always joke, there's 3 European Cup winners' medals and a Scottish Cup select runners up medal between us, right? You can work out who's who. But it was the best thing ever. It was the greatest privilege of my life, getting to meet these guys who are just the most humble men, and they've played for the greatest Celtic team ever, bar none. What their achievements will never be repeated, and they were just wonderful, wonderful men. And so one of the times we're going to the Brazen Head in Glasgow, you probably know what it is. It's a pub, and and it kind of Gorbals area of Glasgow. And as we're driving up, I always took my father because I always wanted feedback from him, and he's always been my go-to man, and he always gives me the truth, whether I want to hear it or not. And as we're driving up, my father says to me, "Did you know Bobby Murdoch was my hero, son?" And I'm like, "No." It's just like, why didn't I know that? He went, "Bobby Murdoch was a world-class footballer." So I was like that. Well, says, "Hopefully you'll meet him tonight. That'd be good if you could do that, you know." And so we walk in, and Bobby Murdoch, Jimmy Johnston, Bertie Auld are sitting at a table, and the compere is there and shouted me over, walked over, and I said, "Hi, Anna," and I knew the guys, so Bertie, Bobby, and Jimmy, how you doing? And how you doing? Sit down, and I said, "I'd like to introduce you to somebody. That this is my father. This is Danny, father." And so they all, Bertie all kind of knew him because he'd been before. So Jimmy Johnston shakes his hand, gives him a cuddle, and Bobby Murdoch says, "Danny," and he says, "Yeah." And he shakes his hand, gives him a cuddle, and says, "Do you fancy a pint?" And the two of them walk to the bar. He puts his arm around him like as if he's his best pal. And I'm just kind of standing there and I'm watching this, and I disappear. I've got to disappear, and I just I break down in tears because it's just like it remains the best thing I've ever did. Introduced my dad to his hero,
Aye.
all coming full circle because he introduced me to my hero, taking me to see Ken Dalglish. And through the job, I've ended up meeting him and interviewing him and stuff. And I don't think you can ever top that feeling of career satisfaction when you say to your dad, "Dad, that's Bobby Murdoch," and your father saying to you, "It's all right, son, I know who he is." And it's kind of like, you know, and Bobby walking with him to the bar, and just that kind of silhouette of the two of them walking. And I just think, doesn't really matter what you do after that. You just kind of
Aye.
think, okay, it's I get into football because of my dad. I support Celtic because of my father. He handed that down to me, and all the memories that I've got, great memories in my career, involve football. They involve Celtic, and they usually involve my father and my brother because we just grew up watching everything together, and so it's something that in my journalistic life that, and as I say, I've written about it in the books that I've written since I left the record. And you're talking about risks. I took a risk with that because I put a couple of things on Facebook, and it was someone else, a guy called Cliff Pike from Hibernian TV, that said to me, "Tony, why don't you collect these stories and put them into a book?" I said, "Who'd want to read that?" And he went, "I do." And I said, "Okay." And I took a risk, and I wrote two books. The first book over lockdown, and published it on Amazon myself, and people genuinely liked it. Nobody was more surprised than me. And I've since written another one. First one called Going to Gi's a Kick Here, Ball Mister, and the other one called Going to Gi's a Lift Door, Mister. And yeah, and just as I say, I had no perception of how people outside would receive it, and they've received it brilliantly and been really, really kindly disposed towards them. And it was all, and it features moments like that with my father and Bobby Murdoch, and everybody who's read that says that it's kind of got them emotional thinking about watching football with their parents, grandparents, whatever, and you know, and the fact that you were in that position to do that for your dad, So it's every now and again I'll get a DM from somebody, a complete stranger, and it's just again I go back to it. It's the most humbling thing ever. If they've read the
Mm.
books and they say they've enjoyed it, and they pick certain moments, which I did, and they said they enjoyed that, and I can't begin to, for a words man, you get kind of lost for words when you're trying to respond to somebody being really, really kind like that, and I'm ever so grateful.
Aye.
But then I go back to it. It's hard work that's got you to this. Never ever lose sight of that. It's
Aye.
you work hard, but these are moments in life to be enjoyed, surreal as they are and wonderful as they are. You worked hard to get there, and I guess that's some kind of payback for all the hard work, isn't it? For doing the hard yards, I think it's called, isn't it?
Aye. Aye. You talk a lot about obviously hard work there. I can remember you saying when we were in the college that you stood at Celtic outside Celtic Park for about 10 hours waiting on Chris Sutton.
Yeah,
Um,
stakeout.
because which I found quite good. But I guess that's what you kind of need to do. Obviously, if you want to get,
Again, another one of those. They get the daily record getting intelligence that Chris Sutton's going to sign for Celtic. I'm the first in, 9:30, Celtic Park. Oh yeah, that you better grab something to eat just now because you're not going to get anything for ages. I'm like, no, I'll get something like that's fine. Big mistake. And I go to Celtic Park and I'm there for about 9:45, around about that. And yeah, I was there till about 10 o'clock that night. So about 12 hours basically. Nothing to eat. Hadn't been to the toilet, nothing. And as I say, Chris Sutton turned up and he had a laugh and a joke. Because I asked him if he was there to sing for Celtic, and he said he wasn't there to look around and that kind of stuff. And I labelled him a flop, a 6 million, sorry, a £10 million flop at Chelsea, and he's just kind of looking at me as if, who the hell are
ah,
you?
yeah, I can
That kind of
remember you.
thing. And I was young at the time, and kind of thought maybe that wasn't the best way to go about it. But you know, and journalists came and went, and I never ever said a word that he was in there. I refused to confirm or deny that he'd gone in. And lots of people were like, Wild Goose Chase, he's not here. But I knew he was there. So I just sort of said, I'll hang about and see. So what goes in must come out. I worked on that premise. But when he came back out at 10 o'clock at night, he was just, he empathised with another human being. He was like, you still here? I said, yeah. He said, what do you want to know? And I said, I want to know everything. And he told me everything. And he said he'd signed a 4 or 5 year deal. And yeah, he was here to win trophies and all that. And, these are days that pay off because your professionalism kicks in and you just think, there's something in it for me here. And it was. And that was the back page on July the 11th, 2000, which not a date that anybody will remember, but it was my birthday. So July the 11th, 2000, after the back page of the Daily Record. Chris Sutton, I'm here to tame Gers, was the headline. He didn't actually say that. But years later, Chris becomes a Daily Record columnist. And I'm one of the days I'm designated to do his column, and I chat to him and I remind him of said episode. And he was like, "Aye," he said, "some guy branded me." Wait a minute, that was you. That was you that branded me a £10 million flop. Yes, Chris, that was me. He's like, you upstart, But and he was great. And another one of those relationships that still exists to this day. I was at Easter Road there recently, and he was up in the balcony, and I came up the stairs, and I was talking away to him, and young Ryan McGinley was with me. So that was the first game the two of us from the Celtic way had gone to.
Aye.
So I went up and spoke away, and I came back and I sat down, and he was like, "First name tells me Chris Sutton." I was like, "Well," I said, "I've got a long history with Chris Sutton." I said, "So, uh, and again, someone who I admire greatly.
Aye.
That team that he played in, the Martin O'Neill team, and alongside the King of Kings. If you're a Celtic supporter, he's arguably the greatest player that people of my generation, possibly your generation, have seen at
Aye.
Celtic. So that's up for question, I guess, isn't it? But he's in both of them. Kenny Dalglish and Henrik Larsson are in the greatest ever Celtic 11. So I'm not disputing that. They would be in my greatest ever Celtic 11. So
I know, because it was like a few weeks ago at Celtic, but I think it was after the Ross County game. So stood after the game, bucketing in the rain. Me and my pal standing there. It's mud on the grass, everything. So where the players' car park is just
yeah,
at
yeah, yeah,
Celtic Park.
yeah,
So you need to stand behind it. Found a spot, you stand behind there, you're more likely to get some of the players come in and speak to you. So that's fine. We get Callum McGregor, Bernardo, things like odd players like that. You know, Keel, whatever, he just doesn't know. He just gives you a wave. He doesn't. He just goes to his
yeah, yeah,
motor.
yeah.
Things like that. I think that's just his nature, to be fair. But we were persistent. that we want to meet Mattarelli. Absolutely persistent, and we kept storing there. So players would go by, some would commit you, some would just ignore you pretty much. And it got to about 2 cars left, and somebody says to me, "That's his motor earlier." So I'm like, I'm on Google searching up Mattarelli's motor to try and see if we can meet Mattarelli. But then I said to the steward, "Is Mattarelli yet?" "No, he's away with his dies." And I'm not believing this. I'm not believing you're telling us Mattarelli's probably sitting in there while we're standing here. Once we walk away, he's going to
Come out.
drastically come out. So that's fine. Michael Nicholson, he even comes out. So we speak to him. Um, Maybe in the future journalist, I'm saying to him what's going on and all that, asking about signings or didn't really give me an answer, but that's what they're good at. But so then we end up walking away, and it turns out he did go home. He didn't never commit that day. So it was
Oh, okay. Fair
after
enough.
after last week's game. Obviously, Kamano was really poor. So I'm like, my face is like thundering. I'm no happy there. I'm raging. So my pal's like, "You want to stone?" I'm like, "I don't know if I can." So I was like, "No, we'll stone right now, bother." So Lowell was the first to come out. I was like, he has to be the
Mm.
only one, the first person to come out. So that's fine. He's got about 4 shields on him. You know why? But because he's going to get most of the flack. So he meet most of the players. Not some of them are talking to, some don't. So my pal goes, "Eddie's there." And I was like, "Who?" "Matt Riley." I was like, so finally got a photo of him. Anyways,
Oh,
he walks away. He goes like, "What motor do you drive?" And he just laughed at us. And I says to him, I think I said something along the lines of, "Thanks for telling Simeone to go away," and he just turns around and laughs at us. Um, but I no, it's kind of like that. If you're really persistent, you want like
and
something to.
yeah, and it means the world to you for people to stop and give you their time. It's the most valuable commodity that you can give
Um,
anybody. Is your time, and football fans. They just love their heroes, don't they?
because I've
And
been obviously, I've
I think
been,
it's part of your job as a Celtic player
aye,
to do that. So and Matt Riley's one of those guys that gets it big time, and he's actually a pleasure to actually interview because he's always got a lot of good things to say, and he's very articulate, and he's just an all round good egg. So
aye.
you wish him every success.
I know, because I've been obviously I'm trying to look to see if I can get like other people on the podcast as well. I've been trying to see if I can like get like people like Chris Sutton on it because I would really like to interview Chris Sutton. But but it's obviously you talk. Obviously, I think you've done a piece on Henrik Larsson as well, didn't you? With all his goal pieces, which is
Yeah, I mean that was another surreal moment in your career. I was asked, well, I was sitting one day and it was apparent that Henrik Larsson was leaving Celtic at the end of the 2004 season. And my sports editor, another guy who's sadly no longer with us, a guy called Ian Scott, he was a big Rangers man, but a wonderful fella. He walks round the desk and he's coming towards me. And I don't know why, he just had a moment of ESP. And I said, "Nah, I'm not doing it." He says, "You don't know what I'm going to ask you to do." I said, "I do." I said, "You're going to ask me to describe every Henrik Larsson goal, aren't you?" And he went, "That's astounding." He says, "How did you know that?" And I went, I don't know, I just read your thought bubble as you're walking around the desk. And his words to me were, "Tony, do it. You'll love it. And it'll be a labour of love for yourself." He says, "I'll take you off the rota for as long as it takes." And bearing in mind there's 242 of them, and you have to find a way of describing every one of them. Also, you have to find them. Well, there wasn't 242 of them then. It was however many there was in then the games that were left in the season. So it was for a pull-out when he left. The Magnificent Seven pull-out, as it turned out to be. So I duly do it. It takes a few weeks. Goal number one, Berwick Rangers. Take it from the top, right? Scored a 7-0 win against Berwick Rangers. And off we go. I do it season by season. And I think nothing of it. But the pull-out comes out. It looks wonderful. Great. I get a lot of emails from all over the world saying, "Wow, what a piece of journalism that is." And it did. It became a kind of labour of love, and I'm glad I did it, and I'm proud of it. And so Hugh Keevins is he's got an interview with Henrik Larsson in it, but as we were going through it and we were doing things, the phone went. Well, Hugh Keevins' mobile phone went. Hugh Keevins was on the landline, and his mobile goes. I pick up his mobile, and I say, "Hugh Keevins' phone." I say, "Who's calling?" It's the King of Kings, isn't it? It's Henrik Larsson. I'll not try to attempt a Swedish accent, but it sounded very much like a Bond villain, right? So I've nearly dropped the phone. I've gone haywire, eh? So, and I'm like, "You," and he's just across from me. I said, "I don't care who you're on the phone to. Get him off. It's the King of Kings, Henrik Larsson. Henrik, I'll just get him. He's on the. Can you believe he's on the other line, Henrik? Imagine knowing you're going to phone and being on the other line, right?" And he's like, "It's all right, Tony, I'll call him back." That kind of thing. I said, "No, stay there. I say, "Henrik, what a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to watch you for the past 7 years. Absolute wonderful. Thank you for all the memories. Thank you, great," all that kind of stuff. So Hugh Keevins bangs the phone down. And I say, "Who can be more important than the King of Kings?" So he says to me, I says, "I was actually on the phone to Super Ali, right, Ali McCoist." So I feel myself laughing, right? And so Hugh Julie takes his phone, does the interview for the pull out. Great, fine. Puts his mobile phone down, and his landline goes, and he picks up, "Hello," and he's like, bang, and he's killing himself laughing. So I'm like, "Oh, what happened there?" And it was Ali McCoist who said, "You hung the phone up on me to speak to Henrik Larsson." He went, "How many golden boots has he got?" And he put the phone down, and it was just a priceless moment. Like, so we're all killing ourselves laughing. So the pullout comes out, and it's great. As I say, it's magic. And so a few years ago, there was a night out at Celtic Park, a dinner in honour of a woman called Angie who used to wash the kit, and she sadly passed away through illness. And everybody came. I mean, it was a who's who of Celtic greats. Henrik Larsson was there, and so I was invited by a friend of mine, a guy called Pat Rolling, to his table, and I'm sitting beside Dixie Deans and the comedian Des McLean. So I thought, okay, now or never. So I had all the goals laminated. I've got the sheets laminated, and I've got a black marker pen. So Des McLean's looking at it, and he's like, so I showed him. He's like, "Oh man," and I went, "I'm going to ask the great man if he'll sign it. He might not, because he's very camera shy and he never did many interviews, and which is fine. It's his prerogative." So as luck would have it, he's sitting beside Alan Stubbs. I'd got to know Stubbsy as the Hibs manager, even his time at Celtic. So I had a great relationship with him, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to use Stubbsy here as the go-between to get me to, because he's sitting right next to him, right? So it's just like totally shameless. I've gone up to Alan. I've got the marker in my hand. And I said, "Alan, how you doing?" "Oh, Tony, how are you?" I said, Fine. I said, "Look," I feel terrible." He says, "I want to speak to that man there." And he went, "Oh yeah." And I went, I says, "This is his goals. Every goal, a description of every one of his goals." So Stubbs starts reading. He's like, "Oh, that's brilliant." He says, "You want to get me to sign it?" I went, "Aye." He says, "Because I wrote it." He's like, "Oh," he says, "if you wrote it," he says, "Brilliant." He says, so Stubbs just went over to him, and he was talking to somebody. Henrik was talking to somebody, getting a picture taken. He just kind of whispered in his ear, and sure. So it's like you're getting waved forward by the Godfather. He's like, and I've walked up and I've said, "Henrik," I said, "My name's Tony Haggerty." I says, "I spoke to you once before, or twice. I'd interviewed him a couple of things well, but only after matches. And I've explained who I am." And so he starts reading it, and he's like, "Oh, yeah." He says, "I remember this, He said, "My son at the time loved it. It was a great souvenir. I said, yeah. And he said, you want me to sign it? I said, well, I'd love you to sign it, yeah. But the minute I unmasked myself as the author, he said, oh, he said, in that case, he signed the front page, he signed the back. He signed it about 3 or 4 times, right? So I was just kind of standing there and I'm just thinking, oh, wow, right? So he's reading these things and he starts describing his hat trick at Tynecastle in the snow, whatever year it was, to Big Stubbsy. And oh, remember that? Yeah, the hat trick at Tynecastle. The three of us are laughing. And then as I walk away, he just kind of flicks to the eagle and he goes, poor Bert Conterman. And the three of us just kind of start laughing, right? And I'm like, thank you so much. You're a wonderful man. You know, the King of Kings says it all. I'm eternally grateful. And I walk back to my table. I say thank you to Alan and I say, look, I'm really, he's like, behave, it's fine. Glad I could be of assistance, that kind of thing. And I sit back down at the table and again, Des McLean said, it was echoes of my pal James. He said, if you hadn't gone there and asked that, he said, you would have regretted it. He said, what a priceless souvenir that is from his career. He says, and he says, that's hard work. He said, you put a lot of hard work into that. It's like, so that's the payoff for that. And the words of Ian Scott came back to me. It's kind of, just do it. He'll love it. And it turns out he did love it. And he signed it for me. And again, there are times when you think that, you know, there's external forces guiding your career and just guiding you. And I've been fortunate that I've had these kind of moments, surreal as a lot of them are, but also wonderful as a lot of them are. And that's another souvenir. It's a priceless souvenir. I'd never part with it, and it's something that I'm immensely proud of, and just something that I never ever thought I would get the great man's signature on it, because you never think you'll get close to them. But again, through relationships that you've built, like with Alan Stubbs and stuff like that, it happened. And again, I'm always humbled by these things, and again, it's something that I treasure.
I'm just going to ask you just one or two more questions before we finish up because I can see it over a new year. Though I keep you too
Right.
long, but um, I was just kind of want to ask, like, obviously, what would your main tip be for like upcoming like journalists? So like, of just people who create content online, so like YouTube, so for instance, or anything really,
Keep doing it.
keep doing
Keep
it.
doing it. And I would say, like, don't take no for an answer, but that's difficult. But believe in yourself as well. There's nothing you can't do, and there's nothing you can't learn. You know, with YouTube tutorials, whatever, and be the best version of yourself that you can be. I've said to you before, I'll never be Hugh McIlvanney, or William. He was a writer too, but Hugh McIlvanney's the best sports writer that ever lived. I aspire to be. Sometimes I might have got close, but no cigar. But every day I wake up, I just try and be the best journalist that I can be. What did I write today? I'm going to better that tomorrow. You
Aye,
know, wake up today and be better than yesterday. That kind of stuff. And I was given. I spoke about Arthur Montford very early, and Arthur Montford gave me the best piece of career advice when I interviewed him as a student, like yourself. I got to interview him, and he spoke me through his life, and it was wonderful. And he said to me, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, Tony. He said, and you won't understand this till years down the line. And I'm like, okay. And it was like stars in your eyes moment. He said it and then he disappeared, you know. It's just like kind of smoke. And he said to me, see when you wake up in the morning, put your shoes on, not your slippers. And I was like, I was 20 odd and I'm standing there like that. Then years later it dawned on me, have a purpose in life. When you get up in the morning, attack the day. If you're a journalist, write your best ever piece, write your best ever article, persevere, and don't you know don't relax. You know, as I say, have a purpose, have a meaning to get up in the morning and be get up and go type thing. You know, and it always resonated with me when I eventually found out and worked out what he actually meant. You know, he was just like, don't don't be lazy. Basically, you know, if you want something, go and get it. It'll not be handed to you. But if you put your shoes on and are ready do the hard work and the hard yards and the graft, then you find that the rewards will come. And that's something that's always stuck with me, and I always pass that on to
Aye.
aspiring journalists like yourself. Be busy, be active, do your thing, even if you're doing it for the love of it, and so be it. And you're not doing it for clicks and hits and money, but enjoy it. Be passionate about your subject. And I think if you have all these things and tools at your disposal, your natural talent will shine through. Somebody will like what you do. Somebody in the journalistic world will take a chance on you because they're always on the lookout for
Mm.
talented
Aye.
people. And yeah, that's my advice. I would say to you, just to keep doing as you do. I say to you guys, before you've already taken the first step. You've decided what you want to do with your life. You're on a course, and listen to your lecturers. Listen to everybody who's wise or is wiser, because there is a tendency in young people to think that they know it all in this new digital world, and they do. They know everything about that. You know, these people are here to help you and to guide you. And a lot of clever journalists got far in life by listening.
Aye.
I know you might find that hard because I've spoken a lot on this, but again, I was you, and I
No,
got.
you know what you're talking about, so just
Well, I don't know that.
yeah.
That's again, I leave that up to others. But if you're going to base it, myself personally, in my career and things that I've did, then I I think I did okay. We're now entering a new wave and a new era of journalism. You know, the newspapers. It's now going on to digital platforms. So be the best you can be at everything that the digital world entails. As I said to you
Mm.
before, sharpen up every one of those skills doing this kind of thing and let it become second nature to you. Because trust me, somebody will see it and somebody will give you a crack. Because that I was given a crack, you know,
Aye.
and once you get that crack, you run with it. You know, you
Mm.
take the ball and you go on a mazy and you stick it in the top corner. Use a footballing
Aye.
analogy, but yeah, and it will come, but you have to learn. As I say, I look at you and I look at that class, and I don't think any of you guys are scared of hard work. You know, and there's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of jealousy, but you have to ride those storms when they come, and just believe in yourself first and foremost. And
Aye.
I think that's a big thing. I think a lot of journalists set out and they don't have belief in themselves first and foremost. But I looked at that class and I thought, I think a lot of them have belief in themselves, don't they? They know where they're headed, or they think they know where they're headed.
I think most of us kind of know
You
we're
know,
going to get there. So
they've got a game plan. They've got a plan A. We work in plan B when plan A doesn't work, Joshua, don't we?
exactly. You obviously spoke a wee bit earlier, which is about low points, and obviously, is there any like major low points or whatever that kind of stick out in your
Eh,
career as a
oh,
journalist?
goodness,
Or do you just
that's a tough one. Eh, I think the low points have been, as I've alluded to before, the death of influential people
aye,
who've helped me along the way. I think that's a void that that's there forever now. You know, the likes of Ian Scott and the likes of Jim McCann. I miss these guys. You
aye,
know, and it's very hard to kind of sum up what they meant to you because they just had a an unbelievable influence in your life, and you never forget them. And I try not to. And I think those are particular low point. I think doing a career like this, it's not like any ordinary job. No 2 days are the same,
aye,
and it's low points are few and far between. Because I think as well that I'm always a glass half full kind of guy. Even if I was at a football match and that euphemism, it's the worst game I've ever seen. Everybody says that, don't they? It's the worst game I've ever been to. It was never the worst game you've ever been to. It's never. There's always something to. Well, I always thought there was always something worth writing about, somebody worth speaking to. So it's a profession that comes with a lot of. There's a lot of joy and there's a lot of there's winners and losers
Aye.
attached to being a football writer, a sporting writer in these situations. But personal low points, it's hard to pick any of them out when I say I was really, I thought about packing it in there. Because I never really reached that point because it was a love for the job that kept me afloat.
Mhm.
And at every time, I just love the job, and so it's I still love the job. I still think I can be a better journalist. You know, so if that's the case, then I've been doing it, as I say, 27 years. So believe me, you will 25 years down the line when I appear on another one of these pods as an old age pensioner and say, see, you did it, and all that kind of stuff. You'll understand what I mean. But I I've, and it's not all been a career of highs. Those are
Aye.
stories that mean a lot to me, but it's certainly not been a career role. I've been fortunate, as I say. I was in the local papers for a year. I was at an agency for 6 months. I was in the record for 20 and short of 21 years. I had a kind of year out going back to university to become a teacher, which I didn't like. That's fine, and I've been fortunate to get back in, and I've been the last 2.5, 3 years talking about Celtic every day, writing about Celtic every day. So it's,
Aye.
I think as career lows go, there's not been many. It's,
Aye.
I I I've been fortunate that way, and I'm ever so thankful and grateful for that.
Just to end off, I was just going to ask you what you think the thoughts on the current Celtic team at the moment. Obviously, we're going through a bit. Yeah,
How long have we got? Yeah,
I know.
it's yeah. I think
It's,
I think every Celtic supporter shares our concerns of this season, don't they?
I don't think we've really, in my opinion, we're not get going really this season. No, I don't think it's been a bit stop start. We've
Yeah.
looked all right some
So,
games, and then you've got Hearts 2-0, and you've got
yeah. What
Kilmarnock getting it.
what I will say, despite the doom and gloom, that they can still win this title,
And they can still
right? So 2 points, with 12 games left, that's nothing. But they really do need to hit a runner for them.
aye,
Yesterday,
aye,
yesterday, yeah, that's the bottom line, isn't it? And regardless of what you think about the manager and the players, it's what we have. And
aye,
I think, ironically enough, I think the manager's going to be pivotal in guiding us over the line if he does guide Celtic
aye.
over to the title, because he's been there, seen it, and done it. And lots of people have their opinions about the manager. I still think he's the right manager
Mhm.
for the job, but when you do not arm the manager with the
The
necessary
right
skills
tools.
to do the job, then it's no surprise that Celtic find themselves struggling at this moment in time. So I think I share everybody's concern. I still want to see Brendan Rodgers be a success. I'm still very much pro Rodgers. I know a lot of people aren't. They're talking about the standard of football and the style and philosophy of football that's been played, but I think the players that have been brought in were brought in to suit an Ange style system and not Brendan Rodgers' system of football.
Aye,
I
'cause
stand,
I
I
don't want
stand
to
by
be
that.
disrespectful, but some of the players just aren't good enough.
Yeah, and I think and the manager spelled that out, hasn't he? So
Um,
I think
I think,
who you going to trust? The guy that knows more about football than anybody at the club, you know. And
aye,
so I, I think they're certainly in a dogfight for the title. Can they do it? Of course they can do it. They've got players there who have been there, seen it, and done
aye,
it well.
done it.
And I think it has to start, it has to kick start on Sunday. You could be 5 points behind
Exactly.
before you've kicked a ball on Sunday, so you need to show something, or else
Um,
it's by 1,000 cuts, isn't it? In the next 12 games, which won't be pleasant to watch.
for
And
me, I, for me, I just think Rodgers has had the rug pulled up from under his feet. To be honest,
well,
with
there's that argument. There's nothing, as he said himself. Well, those who doubted him, I'll see you here in May.
Aye.
Well, the supporters will be there and may come what may, win or lose the title. If
Aye,
they win, it'll be a cause for celebration. If they lose it, they'll be there, but not for the way he thought. So
I
he'll
know.
never die by that statement, won't he? And also, he'll never die by the fact I'm here for 3 years unless I'm emptied. So,
Aye. No, I
yeah,
think it's just important that we kind of keep going.
have
Because
to
it's
end off,
just been
innit? You know?
so, 'cause it was interesting. I again stayed after the game against Kelly, man,
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's the atmosphere's slowly but surely turning, isn't it? And they just
it's
they just need to get. Brendan talks a lot about narratives. They need to get a grip of the narrative, then, and only the players and the managers can
doing
alter
it.
that narrative. And it has to start on Sunday. The kind of fight back and bite back starts back on Sunday, and Celtic supporters need to see that the manager and the players have got the stomach and the bottle for a title fight. And so far, they've been found wanting in that regard. So they've
Aye.
got a chance to remedy that. They're playing
No, 'cause
catch up now.
it
So
was it was interesting because we were waiting. We waited and we seen Michael Nicholson come out. He's got his jacket in him. I'm like, he could make I remember this for last week,
yeah,
the week before. And I
correct.
shouted, Michael, and he looked through. So he's gonna get a photo. I didn't actually want a photo, but I thought I just want an excuse for you to come here and speak to us. That's fine,
Yeah.
he came here. I was like, what was that all about? And he goes like, I know it's not good enough. And I says, aye, it's not good enough. I says, in a title fight here. I says, I don't know if you know that. He says, no, I know that. And I was like, do you understand why the fans are frustrated? And he says, aye, he does. And I says, this needs to improve because
Yeah.
I says, you know that fans are going to be frustrated come the end of the season. You're probably you and the board are probably going to get the brunt of the frustrations. And he just kind of looked and I was like, yeah, you know that and I know that. So, but
Well,
it was quite interesting. I was
hmm,
quite decent. At least he spoke to us, to be fair.
yeah,
Um,
that's kind as well. There's 12 games to go, and we'll see what
aye,
transpires with that.
right,
But that it's only going to get louder if it's shaping up not to be the case, and they don't win 3 in a row and everything that's at stake with winning this title. So it's over to the manager and the players to dig themselves out the hole that they've inadvertently thrown themselves into.
aye. But hopefully, can get the other line. Hopefully.
Connect. That's
But
all you can hope for.
thanks for joining us, Tony. We really
Pleasure,
appreciate it, man. Thanks.
pleasure,
It's been
fella, and
brilliant.
good luck with everything. And you know where I am, okay?
Aye. But be sure to go and
Get in
get
touch and
Tony
stuff.
on Twitter as well and subscribe
Brilliant.
to Celtic Way as
No
well.
problem. I
But
will.
thanks very much, Tony. Until our next
No more,
video,
Josh, all
I'll
right. And I'll see
see
you
you later.
again. Speak to you soon.
See
All
you.
right.